Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to module number 7 for web-based dashboards. Today, we are going to finally add uh, graphs to our web application, and we're going to use Jinja2 Templates. So I had to combine two modules into one. In this case, if you're wondering why there's so many slides, the reason being is because I could not, there's no way to have dynamic graphs in our web application without using Jinja2 templates. So I might as well, I just combined it at this point. All right, so here we go. Have a good time. First step, guys, remember, make sure Octeto is up and running. We are again on the free account version, which means that if we don't use it for a while, I think like 6 or 7 days, it goes to sleep. All right. So in my case, I am up and running, so I don't need to do anything. In case you are not, over here, you'll see a white button that says Wake All. Just click on it and it'll wake everything up, and you're good to go. From there, we want to open up. I think I have it here. Click this. So open up your, let me start beginning. All right, first connect to your folder to your actual web account. There's a lot of work we have to do there. And then go to under packages, Platformio, new terminal. And like before, we want to connect to Octeto, just like we've done before. This you guys should be comfortable with now at this point. So I will do Octeto login, right? And in this case, it asks me to, so this is a rare occurrence. I did Octeto login, and then this popped up, meaning I'm not logged in, so it wants me to log in, so I'll go ahead and log in. Using what? All right, now I'm logged in. Some of you guys might automatically logged in. All right, so now I can close that. Okay. So let's do, now I need to do Octeto namespace. All right, and now I can do Octeto up. By the way, there's a new Octeto library that we can download, so we should probably do that as well. I'll probably do that in the next module. Alrighty, it's attaching. There we go. That part's done. And for some of you, okay, so some of you were getting errors where, see, on my case, it's kind of slow. Usually this is like, it's really fast. But for some of you, it was, it timed out. If it times out, usually the case is your folder is too big, right? I'm in. See over here on the top right, let me zoom in a little bit. See at the top right here, it shows how many pods are available, and it shows your storage. Some of you are already at 5 gigabytes, and the reason you're at 5 gigabytes is because your Octeto YAML file. Remember, there's 3 setting files we're using. We're using a Docker file and 2 YAML files. Octeto stack and Octeto. I'll show you that in a second. But your Octeto YAML file, not the stack one, the YAML one, there's you're pointing your folder to something. There's a variable that's incorrect. So if I go here, you'll see here I have 3 files that we use for configuration. The Docker file, very important. Docker file has to do with Kubernetes. It's something that's very big in the industry apparently in terms of configuring Kubernetes applications. All right. Again, Kubernetes, as a reminder, the way it's this technology is now working out in the cloud. They have these individual containers defined by these Kubernetes software, that allows you to run many applications on different servers. And it's just a way for companies now to combine all their different types of servers in a seamless cloud. All right, Dockerfile is the language, quote unquote, that allows you to define or program each application for a certain software, right? For a certain software. So that's the interplay. Octeto, this is their own thing right here. The Octeto YAML file, the Octeto stack file. Now, if you have here too much memory being used, it's because you have additional folders here that are not being used. And that is because in your YAML file, usually, is it the YAML file? No, not the YAML file, the stack file. Is it the stack file? So it could be the YAML file, you have an error. You can always delete that and then log off of Octeto and then log back in, and it'll ask you to create a new one, and then you'll have a proper YAML file. But in your stack file also, one of the mistakes I see people doing is you'll have the wrong username there. Usually you have my username. Your username should go in this point in line 4. And also here, that should be the name of your folder. Like here, for me, it's website, right? That's the name of my project in, see? So this right here in line 4, that website should be that name right there, website. So if that's not the case, what's going to happen is additional folders will pop up in here, and they'll take up space. And you get to 5 gigabytes, that's it. You're done. It's not going to process the Octeto up part. So that's one of the mistakes I saw people making. All right, so my Octeto up is good. I'm ready to roll. All right, now what do I want to do? I want to get into my virtual environment. And this is another mistake that some of my Windows students are doing. For my Mac students, your virtual environment was automatically brought over. So I'm on a Mac, so I'm good to go. For my PC students, you guys cannot use your PC virtual environment in Octeto. You have to create new virtual environments, name it something different, for Octeto. And you will interact with it the same way that the Mac users interact with their virtual environment. So I think that's all the way in Module 1. So just use the Module 1 instructions to create, this is only for the Windows users now. For the Windows users, go back to Module 1, create another virtual environment in Octeto, right, using the PC commands. I know it's annoying, but if you're only going to use Octeto, then you don't even have to worry about your PC ones. You can just focus on your Octeto one, right? And this is important because we do the pip installs, right? The pip installs. Every time you log in, and this is another mistake I see some of you guys making, every time you log in, when you close down, not when you change your internet connection or your internet connection goes down. I'm saying when you do down and then back up, right? When you do down, the that is why we have to do the pip install, all right? All right, and so the environment that gets destroyed, and we have to do the pip install R requirements now. And this is why we store all our requirements in requirements.txt. Oh, it's requirements for me. And again, every time you do a Octeto down, you disconnect, and then you have to connect back in, you have to do the pip install requirements. This is why we put all our pips in requirements.txt, guys. So everything is now preloaded, and now I'm ready to go. So remember, install your requirements. And now you want to install, I already have these installed, but you want to go ahead and install these 3 new packages. Plotly Express, Jinja2, AIO files, okay? Plotly underscore express. Now, in BAP, we use matplotlib to do our graphing. I'm using Plotly this time. Plotly is another package. In this case, I'm using a sub-package within Plotly called Plotly Express. We technically could install all of Plotly and use it, but we can do that later if we need to. So Plotly Express is a simplified version of Plotly, and allows you to make simple graphs. Now, the reason why I'm using Plotly Express over Matplotlib, and I have to look at Matplotlib to see if they have this feature, is Plotly Express actually allows us to convert the graphs we make into HTML snippets. What I mean by now, firstly, HTML is the language of web pages that displays information in browsers. That's number one, in case you didn't know that. And by HTML snippets, what I mean is that Plotly Express actually translates the graph into HTML images and text that can then be displayed on the web page. So it's very convenient when you're generating graphs. All right. Jinja2. What is Jinja2? Now, you guys saw from the previous modules that we are generating all this data from our database and we're returning it to the browser. And the browser shows, in this case, a JSON object. It shows the data as a JSON object, right? Well, we want so what we want is we want the data to go to an existing HTML page, right? We want to design our HTML page. It's much easier that way. And then we want to send, in our case, it'll be simple HTML page. But when you're doing web applications and you see all these, obviously the aesthetics are very important. So we want to be able to combine our data objects or send our data objects into an HTML page, which we can then use to display information dynamically. Jinja2 Templates allows you to do that. Now, there's many templates. This is called templates, by the way. You define you write an HTML page, and then you connect it to your Python data containers, if you will. Jinja2 is one of many templates for Python, right? It's just that Jinja2 is the most popular, so that's why I'm using Jinja2, right? It's by far the most popular one, and that's why we're using Jinja2. Now, Jinja2, the annoying part here is that Jinja2 has its own syntax on the actual HTML page. We'll worry about that later, but you guys will see that when we actually do some examples like that. But go ahead and install pip install Jinja2 as well. And finally, we don't use this yet, but I went ahead and had you guys install this right now. In cases where you have static files or files that are not dynamic, okay, you just have a file that's you're using for whatever purposes. In our case, we're going to eventually use a CSS file. Now, what is a CSS? A lot of time you guys see HTML and CSS being talked about collectively. HTML is the information. CSS is the instruction on how to display that information. These CSS commands, these CSS files, they are basically where you do the web page design and the aesthetics look of it, right? You separate that out. And it's much cleaner, much easier to use CSS files to define the aesthetics of your HTML page. Makes your life a lot easier than when in the old ways they used to put the design strictly in HTML pages. Those HTML pages were horrendous. And that's bad when you're doing web application development because you have Python code in there, Jinja code in there, and then you have design code in there. It's horrible, right? So this allows us to abstract away the design part, right, and just worry about the information. That is a static file, right? That's just our definitions. So we need the AIO files package as well. So those are 3 new packages, and obviously you know you're going to, we're eventually going to add this to our requirements.txt file. All right, we're going to eventually add this to our requirements.txt file, but we'll do that later at the end. All right, so here we go. You guys go ahead and go into here, install it all. I'm already have installed. And by the way, for some of you guys, just warning, Plotly might take some time when you install it. All right, now the first thing we want to do is we want to go to our crud.py file. Now remember, if you guys, hopefully you guys did 6A, module 6A, where we changed the data type of our salary. So we want to add that now. So we have to go to crud.py. Let me go ahead and open this. And before I only had it, let me zoom in a little bit. All right, before we only included for module 6 player, field position, and the team. We want to finally add the salary part, because after you did module 6A and you changed the data type, we can now have the salary in there. And we can confirm this. Do I confirm it? All right, so yeah, we can confirm it. You add it, you save it. Go to your, let's go ahead and launch our application, Python. Let me just make sure my app file is good. All right, cool. That's our app file. Oh, Python. All right, go ahead, just copy this. PCs, remember, you guys will be, I think for you guys, it's localhost :8080. Oh, here we go. And now, cool, you can see I have the player, name, the field, position, the team, and the salary. All right, so now the salary is coming in, no errors. All right, excellent. So we are good to go. All right, now we're ready for our next step. Now, our next step is we want to create 2 new folders. I already done it. We want to create 2 new folders, templates and static. All right, so let's do that first. So here I created my templates, and here I created my static. Now, these 2 folders need to be at the same level as the app folder. Okay, here's my root website folder. There's my app folder. Here's the 2 folders I'm creating, static and templates. So go ahead and create these new folders. It's real easy to do. If you just right click on website, literally just says new folder. Bam, it's that easy. All right, it's that easy, guys. So let's do the static one first, because that's a little bit easier. In the static file, go ahead and create a new file. Right click it and say new file within it called style.css. You're going to create it. It's going to be blank. There's nothing in it. Leave it as blank. We will use this later. Not in this module. We'll use it in a different module. The reason why we're doing this is because in the Docker, eventually we're going to edit our Docker file. But in our Docker file, when you create a new folder, okay, when you create a new folder in your root folder, website folder, we have to define that in Docker, so that when it's sent up to Octeto knows, okay, I'm bringing these folders along as well. All right, you'll see that in Docker. I'll show you that, how we do that in the Docker file. It cannot do that if there's not a file in that folder. You can create all the folders you want. You can even define it in the Docker file. But unless there's a file in there, it's not going to create that folder in Octeto. So that's why we're creating a blank file, style.css, and that's okay. We're going to use it later. We have to use it later anyway. In our templates folder, we create our templates folder, and we're going to go ahead and create our first HTML file. That I used template and the HTML file interchangeably, right? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. All right, so we do here, templates, chart.html, and it's a very simple HTML file. Here, let me indent this in a little bit so it's just easier to see from a static point of view. You're obviously, any HTML file is wrapped in the key markup words HTML. All right. The main HTML, so that's That's number one. Any HTML file has to be, a page has to be marked in HTML, these HTML tags. Then there's two subcategories to the HTML tag: head and body. In the head goes stuff like title and other metadata. For any of you digital marketers or anything like that, you know what I mean. Putting in keywords about what the website's about, putting in other terminology that allows you to basically see what it is that, basically allowing browsers to see certain information about your web page, right? This comes into play when you're attempting to improve the ranking, right? Improve the ranking of your web page. So this is one of the things that happens. All right, so that's what goes in the head file. Now the main information, all the information that gets displayed on a browser, that goes in the body file. That goes in the body file. In this case, I'm simply just putting the word chart, and that is all you're going to see, right? And I encase this in these tags called H1. H1 stands for header 1. It's just a way to give the title to your, it's a header. It's what we call a header tag. So you guys will see what I mean by these headers. There's a whole bunch of there's a whole list of different HTML tags. You put an HTML page. I'll try to find a list of it so you guys can, I'll post it for you guys, but we're not going to use that many, right? We're going to use the basic ones for now. Now, to view this HTML page, we need to make a few changes to the code, all right? Here in this slide, I kind of list all the 8 changes that need to be done. Let me explain it, break it down. I already have it, and I already put it in my first part of my app file, so I might as well show you that. So firstly, over here, in line 2, I'm adding an additional object called a request object. This object basically allows us to change what's being returned to the browser, all right? So whereas before, right here, we're returning an object directly to the browser, we want to have more control over what we return. I mean, to be blunt, what we're doing is we want to return an HTML page instead. Okay, a particular HTML page instead. So this is why we need the request object, to have that power to do that. Lines 8 through 10 over here. These are, I'm getting that straight from the Fast API library, but nevertheless, I'm using them. This one is the HTML response, all right? This basically, I included this package library. We're not going to really use it. This is used for if you want to type in HTML commands. Now see how we have these HTML commands already saved in an HTML file? Hypothetically, I could write this whole thing in one string and return it in my app.py file, and I would use the HTML response to do that, right? And it would interpret, the browser would interpret it as HTML tags. We're obviously not going to use that. I still have that there just in case. All right. It's much easier to use the templates. It's much easier to design and have your templates first, do all your HTML and CSS, and then just include Python objects. World of difference in terms of convenience. This is obviously for my static files. We're not using it yet, but we're going to set it up anyway. And this we will use. This is the Jinja2 templates. All right, the Jinja2 templates. This is how we basically connect HTML files to Python data containers and other kind of Python coding concepts. In line 12 and line 13, I'm importing the Plotly Express. I'm defining it as a PX variable. You guys remember this from BAP. And of course, an oldie but a goodie, guys, line 13, pandas. Now, the pandas table is actually comes preloaded in Plotly Express, believe it or not. So that's why we're able to import it. So here we have it, ready to go as well. In line 17 here. Here now, we are mounting our static file directory. Okay, this is going to be mounted. It's going to be considered our static directory. Now, you'll notice we have static being used in 3 different places. What's happening here? Well, firstly, this slash pat static, anytime the slash pat static is used in HTML pages, it's going to point to whatever we put here in the directory, and the directory is static. That is obviously the name of the directory we created here, static, right? We're saying, hey, that's the name of the folder, that's our static folder. So, I mean, just so you guys know, we didn't have to name it static. You could have named it anything you want, and you would just put that name in there. Okay? This slash static is pointing to that directory in HTML files. So in HTML files, when I do slash static, boom, my Fast API application is going to know, okay, I'm looking at anything in this directory. Bam. All right? This name static is how this directory will be represented in Fast API. So because the name is because I'm using the slash static to be represented of the static folder, which I named static in the first place, I'm just going to keep the variable name static. So all three of these could be different names if we wanted to. So within my Fast API, within my Python code, if you will, this static variable name is going to refer to that folder. In my HTML files, that slash static name is going to refer to that static folder, and that is how we know that static folder is my static files directory. Done. In line 19, this Jinja2 templates, again, same concept. This is basically, I'm basically specifying which folder here has all my HTML files that will be connecting to my Python code. That's going to be in the templates folder, right? And again, we didn't have to name it templates. You can name it anything you want. You just have to specify there. Now, this variable is going to represent not only the folder, but also commands that we can give from the folder, all right? So it's representing both the folder and the commands we can give from the folder. And now we finally come down here to original welcome function, and you guys saw we have our results right there, boom, boom, boom. We're going to change this up. And now what we want to do is we want to change it up so that we have now, all right, okay. We want to change it up so that we can return that template. All right. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to add a keyword called async. Now look, you don't need async, right? We don't need its async, but we are using this Fast API instead of Flask or instead of Django. Django's kind of overkill, right? For this purpose, async. What does async keyword does? Async keyword actually works together with another. It works together with another. I think another property in Fast API. It's not. Let me look it up real quick. I kind of forgot what it was. All right, it works with await. Thank you. All right, excellent. Yes. So usually, when you use async, you use it with another keyword called await. What does this mean? Basically, this means that async, if you define a function keyword as async, Fast API now knows that, look, it's possible that some process might happen in here that might take some time. In that case, Fast API will go ahead and do something else until it's called back by that other function called await. All right, so async and await are used together. Why do you do this? You do this so that your web application becomes that much faster. Because typically, what would happen is if there's a function that's processing something, your web browser or whatever is going to sit there, or whatever, the Fast API, whatever your computer server processes are going to sit there and wait for that function to finish. With the addition of async and await, you can say, okay, something's loading over here, go do something else. And when we need you to come back, when we're done loading, we'll call you with the await keyword. That makes your application, so at any point, your application is never sitting there idle. It's always doing something. And that's what makes these applications much faster. Now look, we don't have await in here. We can still put async in there. The beauty of Fast API is it'll figure it out. Fast API will figure out, hey, is this async actually going to improve the process or not, right? And it'll figure it out for us. So, I mean, typically though, they tell you you should use it in proper ways, but even if you don't use the async in proper ways, Fast API will figure it out. So that's the beauty of it. All right, that's the beauty of it. So that's why we put that in there. The next thing we want to add our request object from before. Remember up here? We call that in. Let's call that in. Let's bring that in. All right, we're going to have a variable that is going to be defined as a request object, and of course we'll name it request. All right, and there you go. Oop. Request, here you go. And now I have my request object. I need that request object, again, if I'm going to serve up HTML pages back to the browser. Because remember, the browser's going to come here, and then we have to say, okay, I'm not returning the data straight from here. I'm returning it via something else. That's why we need that request object. Alrighty, so we got those two things. And finally, now we're going to add this command right here. Right, the templates object that we declared. Template response, and we give it 2 parameters. Let's see if we can just copy this. All right, I will leave my X in there because I'm going to use it. And now we're going to return, see that templates in line 19? That object we defined that pointed to that directory? Well, here we are, we're going to be using it now. Templates, the function we're going to use from it is called template response. Template response now, right now it has 2 parameters. The first parameter is my actual HTML template. That's the first parameter. Bam. All right, that's in the folder, we're good to go. The second parameter is wrapped in these squiggly braces, right? And these are all the arguments that are going to be sent to this template. By default, we need the request object. We need that request object. That has to be there. So no matter of anything, right now we're not passing any data to chart HTML. It's right now my static HTML file, right? Nothing fancy there. Okay, so here I have it, and that's pretty much it. Now I'm ready to run it. All right, it's just going to literally just give us back the chart HTML file, and it's going to allow us to do that because again I included this request object. Down here, looks like I lost my Python main. Let me go ahead and get back into my web. Hopefully I don't have to install everything again. All right, that looks good. Let's go to my browser right here. Let me refresh. Bam. Ladies and gentlemen, you just made an HTML page. There it is. Chart in all its glory. All right, let's make a few changes real quick. I told you we used the H1 header. There's 5 headers all in all. And they basically come in different sizes. Why does HTML have, if you can change your fonts, what's the point of having these different header sizes? This is from the old days of, the initial days of HTML where you didn't have much control over the web pages. So they gave you different tags for different sizes. But look, it still comes in handy because when you're designing a web page or a web application, through CSS, you might want certain different style fonts for different features of the page. And you can define your 5 different main header tags at different sizes and different designs, depending on which part of the page it is. So it does come in handy. People still use it. But I just wanted to show you guys all the different sizes. So there's chart. That's the main one. So I'm going to call this chart 2. Chart 3. Chart 4. Chart 5. All right, save that. Go ahead, rerun that. And you guys can see the different sizes, right? Boom, you can see the different sizes. There's also, for paragraphs, when you write text, like, when you're writing a, I don't know, blog or paragraph, it's called P for paragraph. You know what I should do in Atom? I should install the HTML package that fills in a lot of this stuff. But here we go. This is the font. This is the tag for paragraphs. Right, and you can, actually, let's go ahead and save this. And you can see that, right? And you see that the paragraph font is actually bigger. It's actually bigger than the smaller header tag. Right, and again, all these things are customizable. All these things are customizable. We'll do a little of that in our next module, playing around with our CSS. Alrighty, so let me get rid of all this. Don't need all this. But now we create our HTML file, and we are good. Now it's back to my original file. All right, we're doing all this in Octeto. Cannot tell you how cool this is. All right, now let's add a data container. Let's add a very simple data container. Go to my code right here, and I'm going to say, all right, create a variable a equal to 5. It's Python, very simple. A equal to 5. Nothing fancy there, right, guys? Now, how do I firstly, I have a data container. I first need to do, anytime you have data containers, there are two things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is we need to send it to our HTML template, which again is our chart.html. How do I do it? Within the squiggly braces, give a comma, give the name of the data container, which is A, and then give the actual object, which is A. All right? Easy. And this right here is what the HTML page will be looking for. All right? Nice. Now here, I created a data container. I'm sending it now to the template. But for us to actually use it in the template, right? For us to actually use it in the template, I now have to do something like this. Now, you know what? Let's do this. Let's make it a little more fancy than I did it in the slides. Let me put in my h2 tag. I mean, I don't need to. I mean, so basically, if you do two squiggly braces in the world of HTML templates and fast API, two squiggly braces means you're grabbing a data container. And the data container we're grabbing that we sent is A. You obviously cannot grab something that's not there, right? I cannot do B because there is no B data container. This will give me an error. But there's an A one because here I defined it to go to HTML. See that? Done. And like I said before, I'm gonna make it slightly fancy. Bam. There it is. There it is. The number 5 coming from the data container A. See that? Real easy. Real easy. Bam. Alrighty. Now, I did that. Okay, that's great. But what I want to do is I want to get my data from X I want to create a graph out of it, and I want to get that into the HTML page. Let's do that now. The first step when we get this data back is we want to convert it into a pandas table. Now, why do we want to convert it into a pandas table? Well, firstly, the Plotly package it does graphs off pandas data frames. So that's number one. It's similar to how ggplot in R graphs off data tables. Same concept, right? So that's number one. But number two, more importantly, guys, we're making a dashboard here, right? Which means that we're going to slice and dice the data in ways that gives insight to users using our dashboard, right? We have to make something of substance. What better way to do it? It requires us to manipulate the data, right? What better way to do it than how I taught you guys to do it in business analytics programming? Pandas tables, right? So it really feeds into one another. So the command to do it is a command you've never used before in BAP. This is called dot from records. Let me go ahead and delete that. Oh. From records, and let me change this. I think I just give single quote. Why am I doing so much work? All right, perfect. Now look, pd.dataframe. All right, we've seen that. From records is very new. From records is very new. And from there we put in the parameter x. If we just had x and it didn't specify the columns, we would get an error. The reason why we're using from records is because technically the object coming back from SQLAlchemy is considered a list of quote-unquote records, or a list of items, or a list of objects. All right, in that case, we need to use from_records to take the data coming back from SQLAlchemy and convert it into a table. But we need to do one additional step. We have to specify the columns names. And this is why I have to use the keyword columns. Now, the strange thing here, right, is that in PostgreSQL database, if you remember, we defined all our table column names to be lowercase, right? But here, we have to specify. If you try doing all this lowercase, you would again get an error. The browser, the web server will give you an error that, hey, there's no such thing as player with the lowercase p. There's no such thing as field position, lowercase f, etc., etc., etc. Somewhere along the lines, when SQLAlchemy is getting the data back from PostgreSQL database, it's capitalizing the first letter of our column names. All right? This is why I have to specify capital letters for each one of these columns. It is strange, but we just roll with it. Part of the reason is because in PostgreSQL databases, if we're going to split hairs here a little bit, it's actually not case insensitive. Sometimes a lot of people think PostgreSQL database is case insensitive. It's not. By default, PostgreSQL databases does not look at the case sizes, uppercase or lowercase. But you can, when you're creating the table and column names, you can manually, explicitly make it care about capital letters. I don't know why somebody would want to do that. Maybe there's a business case for it. I would never do that. Why would I make my life more difficult? So I just keep it all lowercase. In this case, you just have to know, you just have to remember and understand, okay, when these columns come back, the first letters will be made into capital. All right? It's strange, but it's the way it is. All right. But now we have a data frame. We have a data frame with all our data from the database. How cool is that? All right. From here now, the first graph I want to make is, let's do the first top 10 players. Let's show a bar graph of the top 10 players that make the most money. All right, as of that year, the data we have. So what do I want to do? Now there's two ways I can do this. All right, I can create a new, I think the way I did in the slides is I created a new table called df10. All right, so I'm just going to do it slightly different in the video. Instead of just creating df10, I'm just going to literally just do df.head10, right, in my bar graph, All right, let me just copy this. So I'm just going to skip that step. So in case it's slightly different, guys, you know what's going on here. So instead of creating a subtable df10, I'm just going to do df.head10. 10. All right, done. All right, so this is how Plotly Express works. Again, very straightforward. Firstly, px is pointing to Plotly, if you guys remember that right there, line 12. px.bar stands for bar graph. Okay, within the bar graph parentheses, right here, right, we're calling the bar graph function. I need to specify my, if you guys remember how bar graphs work, I need to specify my, this is from ABI, people, my x-axis. My x-axis is what? It's going to be a categorical data, which is the player, right? My y-axis is going to be what? A numerical data point, which is going to be the salary for the player. And I add an additional keyword, a title. So put a nice little title there, top 10 paid NFL players. Done. This gets saved. This bar graph, now this is a bar graph that's created, and this bar graph object is saved in this variable called fig. All right? Now, I need to do one additional step to fig. That additional step is, don't have it here. Oh, here we go. That additional step that I need to do is convert it into an HTML file. All right, let me copy and paste this. Bam. Mind the underscores, guys, they go away. So the function I use in Fig, remember I created this figure object. We can now decide how we want to render it. And I want to render it as an HTML. So there's two underscore HTML is the function I call. In it, I give a few parameters, guys. All right, the first parameter I give, oops. And now this should be good. Yep. Okay. Okay. The first parameter I give full underscore HTML equals false. The reason why I do that is because if you use the to underscore HTML command, what's going to happen is that image will become a whole HTML page. We won't be able to put it into an existing HTML page like we want to do with chart.html. It'll just become its own page. We don't want that. That's why we set full underscore HTML to false. So what happens is the HTML commands it's gonna define are going to be made to be placed within an existing HTML page. All right, that's number one. Number two, include underscore plotly.js. This basically is saying, hey, do you want to include the JavaScript library in your image, in this HTML text? Okay. If we say true to include it, the file, the size of this image, the size of this this code, HTML code, that's going to go into our web page, our chart.html, is going to become bigger because it's including a lot of code. When you just say CDN, what happens is instead, online, when it launches, it's going to go to some Plotly server somewhere and connect to that library via the web and then do whatever it needs to do and render the HTML the graph accordingly. It makes our HTML page smaller, but it does require more bandwidth. So that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off. Right? I just said, hey, you know what? Keep my page small. Just go ahead and go out to the virtual libraries, wherever it is located, and get whatever information you need to render the page correctly. All right? So that's basically what these two parameters are saying. All right, now this is our snippet. This is going to be our snippet of HTML. And again, now I don't have the A object anymore. I'm going to send this to the HTML page. Alrighty, here we go. Save this. I come here, and now this is not going to be text. It's going to be an image. Let me get rid of this. And let me put in top 10. Now here, if I were to leave this like this, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's do it. This is what you get back. What is all this? Right? What the hell is all this? Yeah, that's what's coming back. This is being, and what makes sense of this is, you see this right here? JavaScript. This is actually, look, here it is. Here's the link. This is where this line of code is going to be going to. So this is where the JavaScript library lies out in the web, where this code goes to and tries to make sense of all this code. A lot of it is just JavaScript code. All right. Now, I'm not going to teach you JavaScript code. I hate JavaScript. Me personally, when I argue with theologians and atheists, I always like to cite that the existence of the devil can be proven by the fact that JavaScript is the only language you can use to code in browsers, right? JavaScript is the language used to make your web page dynamic in browsers. Like that's the language that browsers process. All this stuff is being processed in Python, and that stays in Octeto in the server, as opposed to being processed in the server, being processed in the browser by JavaScript. All right. I hate JavaScript so much. I claim that the existence of the devil can be proven by the fact that the only language available to programmers to program on the browser side, or what we call client side, is JavaScript. That's how much I hate JavaScript. All right? This is going on the web, and I'm going on the record for how much I hate JavaScript. Can I believe in 2021, all we have left is JavaScript, that hack of a language. All right? So rant aside, this is what happens. Now what we want is, see what's happening is here is that Fast API is grabbing whatever is in top 10, this variable, and it's displaying it as text. We don't want to display it as a text. We want Fast API to process all that as actual HTML, as actual missing HTML, if you will. As if though, so for example, if we were to just copy and paste all this in here, then it would be processed correctly. So the way to do that is you have to use a trick in Fast API, in Jinja actually, in Jinja2, using this pipe, the pipe command. Again, the pipe command is usually that button above. You have to press the shift and press that button above enter. So that pipe command basically says, okay, hold up, there's a little more to this variable. And here, and after that, you type in safe, the keyword safe. What this does now, this tells Fast API, look, don't show this data or whatever is in the data container as text. Instead, process it as HTML. All right, and now when we do this, I do my refresh. Oh, looky what I got here. I have my graph. I have my first graph, guys. Congratulations, you have your first graph for your HTML dashboard page, right? And if you slide over here, you see there's some dynamic things you can do. You can download this graph as a PNG file. You can zoom in. Maybe not. You can pan. Can I pan? That doesn't really come in handy. Not much there. You can select the box of it. Whatever. Right? A whole bunch of things that it allows you to do that we really don't need. We don't really need to do anything with anyway. But oops, actually downloaded it. Don't want to download it. All right, whatever. It's there. All right, so we have our graph. And here we can see Dak Prescott, Jim Garoppolo, Trent Brown, Derek Carr. Alrighty. So we have our first bar graph. Great. Excellent. All right, but let's go ahead and add another graph. Remember, this is going to be a dashboard, guys. This is going to be a dashboard. Yes, we just have one graph taking up the whole page, but we're going to have to play around with this. We're going to have to. A dashboard usually has several different graphs that are painting some sort of picture, and they're interactive. I mean, that's the whole point of being in HTML. They're interactive. We'll see how interactive we can make it, given our little, the libraries we're using. But we're going to do our best. Right? We're going to do our best. Now, these are the top 10 players. Well, what about the top 10? Well, what about the teams that are paying the most? Right? What about that? Okay. I want to show a graph that these are the players, but what about as a collectively as a team? Aggregate the salaries as a team. Show me the top 10 teams paying salaries. All right? You know what we're going to do. You know how to do that. Do you know why you know how to do that? Because you guys already know from BAP, you guys know how to work pandas. And if you don't remember, I'm going to fail you. All right, guys? So what do? I want to aggregate the salaries by team. I'm going to do df group by, is it coming back to you guys? Group by what? Group by team. What do I want to, so I'm creating subtables by team, and in those subtables, what I want to select the salaries, and what I want to do to that salaries, I want to summate it. Bam. I'm going to store this in a variable. Let's see what variable I used here. Just keep it consistent. Oh, I called it df team. Oh, okay, cool. All right. And then, remember, when you do a group by, you don't get a pandas table, you get a series. Very good. To convert that series back into a pandas table, we do dfteam.resetIndex. Now dfteam is a pandas table. All right. So we have the salaries, but you know what? We want to order it by salary. So let's do dfteam equals dfteam dot sort values by the salary. And remember, when we sort by salary, it's going to be by default in which order? Ascending or descending? Ascending. We want to do it in descending. There is no descending keyword, so we use ascending and say ascending equals false. Alrighty. And then we want just obviously the top 10. And again, just like before, oh, here I think manually just do dot 10. All right, so I'll just do it right here. Sort it, and just give me the top 10. Done. Okay? Just like before now, I want to create the fig image, and this I'll create this, I'll call this fig 10, or I don't know. What variable name did I use there? Fig 10? All right, fine. df team x equals, now what's going to be in the x? It's going to be team. Y is still going to be salary. And my title now is going to be top 10 teams top 10 paying teams. All right, I guess whatever that is supposed to be. So now I have my fig object. I want to convert it to an HTML, so I'll call this team 10. And again, I want it to be a snippet of HTML, and I don't want it to include the JavaScript objects. I want it to just go out to that website we saw before and grab it. All right, and now, just like we have our top 10, I'm adding some more stuff here, guys. Bam. The HTML page is done. Now I have to go back to my, I'm sorry, the app file is done. But now I have to go back here and I have to add, for visual purposes, I have to add the variable as well, team 10, and pipe it to safe again. See that? So that'll be displayed. I go ahead and I do it. Click refresh. Okay, so I have my top 10 players. Scroll down, I have my top 10 paying teams. Boom! Which is shocking. By the way, here's the cool thing. When you highlight the bar, it actually, see how, that's JavaScript right there. See that dynamic change? That's JavaScript. In the browser, it's adding those. It's telling you the salary, the player name. Same thing here. See that? See that? So we have Houston, for those of you guys that don't know, Las Vegas Raiders, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. These guys actually won the Super Bowl. Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts, the Buffalo Bills, they were in the playoffs. Kansas City, oh, look at that. Kansas City's salary is low. They were actually they were in the Super Bowl as well. They lost it. San Francisco? Who the heck is SFO? Let's say San Francisco. It makes no chance. Dallas, Chicago. All right, Dallas, look how much they paid their players. They sucked. They were horrible. Which is great for me because I'm a Giants fan. Suckers. But anyway, here we go. We have our charts. And we can keep adding them. But remember, this is a dashboard, people, right? We don't want to keep having people keep scrolling down. They should go into the browse page, boom, and they should see all their little graphs here. We have to manipulate this now. We have to design our graphs so that it can be viewed, at least the summaries of them can be viewed on the page in one go. All right, and then we can allow the investors or whoever to view the page. So this basically, you should be good at now having your graphs and everything. At this point, our next phase now is to format this, and we're going to use the CSS files to do it. We need to format this, and obviously we want to play with Plotly a little bit more. So in the next module, we're going to do that. We're going to play with Plotly a little bit more, try to get a little more fancier, and we're going to start using our CSS file to have better control over how these graphs are displayed on our website. Okay, so we're not done. We need to get this now into our Octeto production page. Right now, remember, let me close out of this. Control C, put my server down, and now remember we installed 3 new libraries. So we need to recreate, or we need to update our requirements.txt. So you have to use you have to use the command python -m pip freeze arrow requirements.txt. And this is why you need to be in your virtual environment. This is why I told my PC students, look, create another virtual environment just for Octeto and use it. It'll make your life easier. Run this command, update your requirements.txt. My requirements.txt is fully updated, right? You'll see it here. You can confirm it because you'll see Jinja2 is over there. Markup safe gets loaded. Pandas and NumPy get loaded. Plotly is there. All right. And also we need to do, like I said before, before we actually load it up. All right, so we need to do that. And over here, like I said before, you need to open up your Docker file again. You need to open up your Docker file. And in your Docker file, all right, and do it in an Atom. I already have it. But initially, you had this command, copy ./app /app. And basically what that was doing is it was saying, hey, copy everything in my app folder into the app folder in Octeto. So it's going to go create it and add all those files. Same way, we created 2 new folders, templates and static. We need to do the same thing. So we add another line for templates, copy everything in our templates file and the folder in Octeto, copy everything from our static files and directory from Octeto into our folder. Alrighty, make those changes, save it. All right, we don't need to do anything else with our other YAML files. You need to now open up your GitHub desktop. I think I have mine open up. All right, open up your GitHub desktop, guys, like here. Upload everything into your GitHub desktop. Why is it asking me to? I guess I made some changes, whatever. Right, my thing should be the same now. I guess I made a few changes, whatever. Let me load it up. Worked out great. Okay, so now we're updated. And now we come back to Octeto. All right, guys, to redeploy from GitHub. And again, I cannot stress how easy and sweet this is. No matter how many files we create or we change or we update, we upload it all by one click into GitHub. And from GitHub, we just click one button, reset button, And Exeto goes ahead and grabs everything and sets it all up for us via that Docker file and it's Exeto stack file, right? How sweet is this? You cannot understand how easy and sweet this is unless you've done other kind of web application development. And believe me, I've done different kinds in my many moons of working, right? And it's just, oh, so much easier. It's brilliant. All right, so looks like it's pulling that in. See the wheel working over there? Looks like it's played, it's running. Go here in Fast API. Click on this, my link. And boom. Boom. By the way, you saw that slight delay when we opened it? Let me do this again. First of all, notice the NFL dashboard name up there on my tag. See how it says NFL space dashboard? Where is it getting that from? It's getting that from our title. You can change that in the title, mess around with it. But more importantly, I just want to show you that again. Let me go click on this. Chart comes up, and then there's a slight delay with the graphs. That's because, again, the JavaScript is going out to the other browser and getting it. That's why, you know, like I said, there's a difference between speed and size of your page. And here we go. Scroll up, scroll down. You have your graphs. Cool. Nothing fancy. We're going to play with this a little bit more, all right, guys? And this is it. At this point, now you guys are done. And now we're all caught up for the next part. All right, guys? So this concludes our video and our module. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next Q&A session in modules. All right?